Now we're going to have a discussion with two progressives, and I love this format. We've got Professor Mark Jurgensmeyer. He's from the University of California at Santa Barbara. He's also the author of Terror in the Mind of God, Global Rise of Religious Violence. And along with him is David Sirota. He's a columnist for Salon, also author of many books, including The Uprising and Hostile Takeover. They have two different views here, and it's going to be interesting to find out where they stand on the issues. First, Professor Jurgensmeyer, I know you wrote an article called Stop Bashing Obama. Welcome to the show, and can you tell us what was in that article?
Yeah, my major point is that we're up against a virulent kind of Republican Congress. This is not your father's Republican Party. These are people who are obviously willing to take the country hostage. They're willing to basically put a gun to its head. And part of the purpose is to delegitimize the president. They said from the beginning they want to make Obama one-term president. And there are a couple of ways of doing that. One is to make him look powerless. Another way is to make sure that nothing ever happens, that government grinds to a halt, and that he will be blamed for it. And I just don't want us Democrats, to be complicit with this kind of strategy. That unwittingly, we are kind of falling into the trap of, blaming Obama for the inaction. It's kind of like, if somebody, thieves break in and hold somebody ransom, and you're forced to fork out a lot of money. The people who had to fork out the money shouldn't be blamed. We should be blaming the thieves. We should be blaming the Tea Party, not Obama.
All right, David Sirota, go.
What I would say is that I think that the professor just simply misunderstands how politics works. That if you look at so many different issues, that the president has not just done what he's done because he's been forced to do it. He's done what he's done because he's wanted to do it. That, in fact, this is not an unproductive Congress that's ground to a halt. This is a Congress that's been one of the most productive Congresses, one of the most productive presidential terms, probably in modern American history. This is a president who has ushered through an extension of some of the biggest tax cuts for the wealthiest people in America. This is a president who has initiated new wars and escalated old ones. This is a president who has actually expanded some of the most radical civil liberties policies of the Bush administration. This is a president who has worked hand in hand with Republicans to undermine the public option, for instance, and basically legislate what George Bush never himself ever dreamed of being able to legislate, which is basically the Heritage Foundation's health care bill sans any kind of public option. So I reject the idea that we should simply assume that we all know what's in Barack Obama's head, simply assume that he's not doing, or he's doing what he doesn't want to do, but what he has to do, and look at it in an entirely different way. That in every major issue where the president has had power to wield, he has wielded it in conjunction with the Republican Party for what is conventionally known as Republican policies. And to say that citizens in this country, Republican or Democrat, should simply sit down and shut up fundamentally misunderstands how history works in this country and how movements are built and what citizenship really is in America.
Professor Jurgensmeyer, obviously David's come out a little strong there, and he's got an interesting take on it, so I'm going to let you respond.
There's no point in going that direction. But look, I don't know what's in Obama's head. In a sense, I don't care. The bottom line is, I don't think either my fellow panelists and myself wants to see Rick Perry as the next president of the United States. We certainly don't want to see Michelle Bachmann as the next president of the United States. I mean, this is basically the stakes. This is what the attempt is being made to do, to try to delegitimize the president. We go down each one of these items, but let's take extending the tax cuts for the wealthy. Obama made it perfectly clear that he campaigned on this issue. It was this gun to the head kind of deal that he didn't want to have to do it. He still doesn't want to do it. He still blames these tax cuts as part of the financial mess that we're in. He's standing tall on this, and yet we've got a Congress that's willing to basically, put the American economy on the line if it doesn't get its dumb, stupid way.
All right, Professor, let me stay with you for a second, actually, because I want to challenge that a little bit. I think David makes a good point in that you got to judge the results, not what the guy says. I mean, especially for politicians. And he negotiated away the tax cuts for what? The START treaty, which the Republicans were definitely in favor of. Don't ask, don't tell, which a great majority of Americans were in favor of. It seems that when he has colossal polling advantages, he's still reluctant to fight. And I'll give you another example before I let you respond. It's the wars. So he said that he was going to get us out of the wars. Now, today in the news, there was an article about how Panetta is ecstatic that, and that's, of course, the current defense secretary, that we are going to stay in Iraq longer than 2011. Now, President Bush is the guy who made the deal that we're going to actually end our presence in Iraq in 2011. Now we're going past that. And at the same time in Afghanistan, there's a new report out that the Obama administration is trying to stay until 2024. So when you look at those results, isn't it fair to say at some point, hey, you know what? Maybe the guy's not really trying that hard to get rid of tax cuts for the rich or to get out of those wars?
Well, let's take each issue. They're different. They're totally separate things. Let's take the whole business of the extension of the tax cuts for the wealthy. That was a part of the congressional discussion over the budget. So this is not, in a sense, Obama's doing. He was involved in that negotiation, but this is a congressional bill that was passed in order to make sure that we had a budget. And it was a situation in which the Tea Party Republicans were essentially willing to sacrifice the American economy, not, bring the government to halt, have no budget, but on this Grover Norquist issue, to which they all are kind of permanently enslaved to, they were going to bring down the whole American government and the economy with it. So the Congress caved in on this. This was not, the president's doing, and the president very clearly said what his position was, and so did the Democrat leaders of both houses of Congress. And yet they said, we've got to do something. We're the only grown-ups in the Sandlot. We've got to plunge ahead. That's the facts, unfortunately, that we're faced with, and we should blame them and not blame the president. Now, on the issue of the wars, that's a much more complicated thing, and that's something about which I'm extremely concerned as somebody who is concerned about foreign policy, and I see the effect of our continuing presence in South Asia and the Middle East as the causes for terrorism, not diminishing it, because it creates a kind of anti-Americanism and a reason for mobilization against us to actually empower a terrorist group. So I'm absolutely supportive of withdrawal as quickly as possible.
All right, David,
how that's done, that's a more complicated issue, and it'd be wonderful to have a whole different discussion on that. What I want to focus on is the way in which this darn Tea Party Congress is trying to delegitimize the president, and I think that would be a huge mistake to see a Republican in the White House in the next election.
All right, so let me kick that over to David then. David, look, the professor brings up a couple of points here. One is, what could President Obama do? They would have shut down the government. They would have had the problem of not raising the debt ceiling, and it would have been catastrophic. So how do you specifically address that? And then point number two he brings up is, what's the alternative? Are you going to, have a situation with Perry and Bachmann, which would be all three of us agree is a disaster. So how do you address those points?
My first point on the debt negotiation deal was that there's two parts of that argument that I think are misleading and dishonest. I think the first part is that to only look at the debt ceiling negotiation as it played out in the last 2 weeks. That actually, had the President of the United States spent the last 6 or 8 months going around the country and trying to be a leader, to actually do what other presidents do, which is go around the country and change public opinion and go into congressional districts and pressure members of Congress, we never, perhaps, and I'm willing to stipulate that it's perhaps, we never perhaps may have been in that situation where 2 weeks before the debt ceiling deadline happened, everyone was saying we either default or not. He could have been a leader, as most presidents have been in the past. The second thing is that, as Bill Clinton said, there was the constitutional option that President Obama never used, never threatened to use, which was citing the Constitution to simply raise the debt ceiling unto himself. And that would have come with problems as well. But that wasn't even used as a bargaining chip. That wasn't even used
can I speak to both of those
in the negotiations. And it wasn't used, even though a former president who had faced a similarly difficult Congress had said that it was something that could have been used. Now, to the question about if everyone doesn't say whatever Barack Obama does is great, then it'll be President Perry and President Bachmann. What I would say is that our obligation as citizens is not to say that whatever the dear leader does is good, and if we don't all rally behind the dear leader, we'll get somebody that we don't like even more. I would submit to you that we, as citizens, that's un-American. That unless there is a movement that is willing to pressure a politician, any politician, then we'll continue getting the same thing. Otherwise, all American politics all American civil society becomes is every 4 years somebody says you got to vote for this guy or you get somebody worse. And then what do you have? You have what you have right now, a continuation of most of George Bush's policies.
All right, Professor, I know you wanted to address a couple of the points there. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and, there's no point in calling our difference of opinion dishonest just because we have a difference of opinion. And who knows, maybe going around the country trying to persuade some of these Tea Party congressmen to change their point of view might have worked. Boy, I sure don't think so.
I got to jump in there, Professor Jurgensmeyer. I think that David was referring to a lot of times Democratic congressmen, not Tea Party congressmen, that you could change their opinion.
But, that we pretty much, that's the Democratic congressmen, not the problem. I mean, they were the problem under the Bush administration, I'll grant you that, because if we had stood up to Bush the way in which the Tea Party Congress is standing up to Obama, Bush wouldn't have been able to carry out all the kind of tomfoolery that he was able to do. But I think we're in a totally different sense, and if you don't think there's a difference between Obama and Bush, Lord help you.
Somehow we're writing out of the story, of course, the first 2 years of President Obama's presidency. I mean, I won't stipulate the idea that President Obama can do nothing in a Congress that has more Tea Party members. But even setting that aside, there is simply no answer. There is simply no excuse. There is simply no explanation for what happened under President Obama when the Democratic Party had a supermajority in the Senate and controlled the House and controlled the presidency.
Jurgensmeyer, you were saying that they never had a supermajority, but certainly they did for some period of time.
Well, but you had Lieberman as a 60th vote, and you had Blue Dog Democrats. Unfortunately, it's like the old Mark Twain line says. I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Democrat. The Democrats have never had the kind of internal discipline that Republicans have had in order to actually, shoot legislation through.
Right. And now, Professor Jurgensmeyer,
we passed a health reform that wasn't what I would like. I would love to have public option. I would love to have kind of the good health care that other industrialized countries do. We passed a very weak thing, which was about the best you could do at the time, but rather celebrate that something was done. Democrats were so dispirited that in the by-elections, the congressional elections, if the same Democrats had come out who voted for Obama came out in the election, we wouldn't have a Tea Party Congress today. That's my concern.
Professor Jurgensmeyer, let me address that.
Complaints about our expectations haven't been met will allow an even worse possibility to come in and take over.
But let me address that. I mean, they had a supermajority. Now you say that it was kind of a weak supermajority. Is it really fair to expect that they would have 80 out of the 100 senators? I mean, when is it ever enough? And I am frustrated that you've got a president that says all the time, like, oh my God, what could I do? There was opposition. Well, of course there's opposition. So it's like, a football team takes the field and it's like, what? They're going to play defense? That's outrageous. And the question is, can you get past that defense through strong leadership? Can you hold your own Democrats? And if you can't hold your own Democrats when you have a supermajority, isn't it a fair criticism to say, hey, wait a minute, well, what can you get done? And how many Democrats do you need before you say to me that you can get anything better than a tiny bit of change?
We never had a majority. In fact, as I say, with the Blue Dog Democrats, the president is not a.
Well, if you don't count the Blue Dog Democrats, what do you count?
If we had that kind of power, that'd be fantastic. But we've got Congress. We have the judiciary, which is the issue with the constitutional option as far as the debt ceiling, which I was kind of optimistic about also until you kind of spun out the scenario What if he'd used the constitutional option to go straight to the Supreme Court and, oops, guess what kind of Supreme Court we've got? It's a terrible box. I'm not happy with it. I'm as frustrated as everybody else. But we should blame the Tea Party and not the president.
All right, David, I also want to jump in and say a million things, but I think it's been a good discussion. David, I'm going to let you have the last thought here.
The only thing I would say is that you just can't have it both ways. Either the president is the most powerful political office in the world, as has been in the age of the imperial presidency, or the president has no power whatsoever. And the Democratic chaos at a time when Democrats did have a supermajority is just a product of Democrats being chaotic. I don't really understand the argument being made. I think the argument that I am simply forwarding is that we as citizens have a responsibility to judge politicians without necessarily only thinking about politicians' party affiliation. What your guest is making is a purely partisan argument. An argument that asks us to forget that the President of the United States was elected with a clear mandate on a very clear set of principles that he has, in many instances, if not most instances, done exactly the opposite of. Simply asking citizens to say, okay, in the face of another election, we shouldn't be asking questions, we shouldn't be criticizing that record, and we should all fall behind the dear leader, I think does more than just potentially affect one election. It basically sets a precedent that elections are no longer about anything.
You know, I can't help but throw in one last comment. Look, I lived through the Bush era where he had a tiny margin when at times he had only 50 Republican senators. They had to break ties with Vice President Cheney. And he pushed through radical, unbelievable change that we did not agree with. But he was effective in pushing it through. And then the Democrats have a supermajority and tell me it's not enough. So, Professor Jurgensmeyer, I got to apologize to you since it was a little stacked. I happen to agree more with David here than your position, but I appreciate you coming on.
The Democrats should have stood up when they had a chance, but at this point in time, don't blame the president, blame the Tea Party.
All right. Now everybody's gotten the last word. Professor Jurgensmeyer's book is Terror in the Mind of God, Global Rise of Religious Violence. David Sirota is on Salon.com. Thank you both so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.